Welcome to my masterclass on seasons of business, designing for the phase you're in, not the phase that you see online. So, today's masterclass is not about burning your business down and starting again. It's about making what you already have work properly. And one of the biggest distortions that we have in the industry right now is comparison. We see someone hiring staff, we see them launching an app, we see them open a second location, and we assume because potentially we were in the same class as this person that this means that that's the phase that we are in right now. But what you're doing is actually seeing someone else's season, and if you apply the wrong strategies to the wrong season, then you won't grow or you won't stabilize, you'll actually break it. So today is about creating a decision framework to diagnose, first of all, where your business already is, understanding what should matter in that, and to help you make better decisions over the next 6 months. Because most bad business decisions are actually not random, it's just a phase error, which is pleasing to know. And there are a few mistakes that people easily make when they are in different phases, and that is that they perceive the amount of effort that they're putting in should pay off to that hustle should pay off to how successful their business is. But just like in exercise, we should be working smarter, not harder. We need to be doing the exact right strategies for the exact right phase that we're in, and not causing ourselves unnecessary extra effort that we don't actually need. Most businesses don't fail from the lack of effort, especially in fitness. We are a uniquely biased group of individuals, self selected, that are actually really passionate about what we do. And pretty much all of us love exercise, which means that we are highly motivated people that will put in a lot of effort even when we're not seeing results. When really we should be looking at how can we take a better and smarter approach to trying to get the ultimate outcome for our business. A lot of that misdirected effort comes from making mistimed decisions. And that's what we're talking about here. It might be that we're hiring too early, scaling when the margins aren't stable, adding services too soon. And it's not an effort problem, it's a timing problem, which is good. That's something that we can fix. So it rewards visible growth, not sustainable structure. Let's give you a bit of an overview about the 4 seasons that we're talking about today. And the 4 different seasons that we have are growth, which is filling your capacity that you have, stabilization, making it consistent, refinement, making it efficient, and expansion, which is scaling it. And most importantly, none of these are actually better than the others. They're just different phases to be in. I hope it's okay, but I will share with you some of the mistakes that I've made as well, because it's really easy to go to these sort of chats where we're talking about working on our business instead of our day-to-day working in our business. So that top level view of systems and structures can be really easy to see that top level stuff where we're talking about our business and how we work on it, and only see it as abstract things. And that totally makes sense to me, because when you're working so hard in your business, it takes a little while to get our brain to think about what are the patterns that we're seeing every day. But this gives us a bit of a guideline for how we can proceed going forward. And by me sharing some of the stories that I've come across in my career, because I've been in the fitness industry for 20 years, that's definitely aging me. It means that oftentimes we can say, hey, that actually sounds a little bit like what I've been going through, as opposed to some abstract thing that we're not really sure how we can apply it. So before we go any further, I want to do a quick self-check. Which ones from a gut reaction feels closest to where you are, not to where you want to be, and not what you think you should be doing, but where you actually are. We're going to refine this properly, but your instinct is usually pointing you somewhere really useful. The first area that we're going to talk about, which we saw on the different seasons that we have, is our growth season. And I'll help you determine whether you're in this season regardless of what your gut feeling was. So growth is where you're currently filling capacity. You don't have as much demand as you have capacity. You've got more slots that are available. Growth season is very simple. You've got space on your schedule. You might have gaps in your day between clients. You might have inconsistent bookings, and you might have fluctuating income from week to week, month to month. And in this particular phase, the problem is not systems and it's not staff. Your problem is you just need to get more clients. And I've got a little challenge that I want to put forth to you. If it is that you are looking for more clients right now, it might be that you just changed location. It might be that you have moved to somewhere different, you've moved to a different gym, or you've just started in the industry. Welcome. I went through this again myself when I moved from New Zealand, Dunedin, to Melbourne. So I started from scratch again when I did that. And the challenge that I'm going to set for you is go through your contacts list and see anybody that is currently in the area, especially if it's like an in-person thing. If it's an online thing, well, then that's anybody on your contacts list. Go through every single person that meets your criteria, whether they're in your area because it's an in-person thing, or whether it's that they're online and you think that that would be the right demographic that you're going for. Send them a message and say, hey, I haven't really had a chance to tell you what it is that I do. And I would really love to get the opportunity to get you in for a movement screen, if that's what you do, or the first part of your client journey, and give them the opportunity to, first of all, be aware of what you're doing, because chances are this person knows, likes, and trusts you. Okay. And if it's a new place, a new country that you've moved to, and it's like your car dealership guy, that's all good. Send that person a message, okay? I'm sure it'll be way better received than the amount of spam messages that we get these days. I've got over 1,000 unopened in my inbox, okay? I'd way rather receive one from someone that I know, like, and trust, or I've had some kind of in-person relationship with, so that I've got the opportunity to, first of all, know what you do, but second of all, be able to recommend you if one of my friends is saying, do you know someone in this particular area? This proves two purposes. Number one is this person, they might actually be thinking about getting stronger, reaching out to a personal trainer, finding a new gym, and they may not know that that's what you do. Or number two, they may know that that's what you do, but they may have felt awkward about reaching out to you about it. And they also don't really want to reach out to someone else about it. They want to go to their friend, but they haven't heard from their friend about it. So they don't want that kind of awkward, like, is this what you do? Could you kind of help me? If you're reaching out to the person, then that's you as a professional being able to help the person. So this is your opportunity to reach out to that person, let them know what you do, invite them in for a session to show them what you do. And if it's not right for them, then give them the opportunity that they can pass that on to other people that they know that might be looking for your services. So that's a little challenge to you if you're the person that's trying to grow at the moment. In your growth priorities, the things that you need to be focusing on are your marketing, your visibility, and your offer. Marketing gives people the opportunity in a very short amount of time, especially in your branding, to understand what is the type of person that you deliver to, how do you deliver it, and what's the style that you have. People are really into stories. They're really into what the professional does, or the why of the person behind the business, and what brought them to that point. We all love those kind of stories. So make sure that is a priority that you're working on. And if you're listening right now and you're not in a growth phase, do at least think about, how could I refine my marketing so it includes some of my background, some of my story, and some of my perspective on how your growth phase. Your priorities are very specific. You need people to know you exist. And the only way to do that is to make sure that you're doing a reach. You're in a big box gym. I used to go out with the membership consultants. I used to say to people on the street as we were passing out the free trials that I was a personal trainer. This was an opportunity to get in front of people that were potential clients while I was still waiting for, the search engine optimization in the area after my business website had been created. So getting the word of mouth out there is what you need to do. And don't feel uncomfortable about doing that, because you can't be the best kept secret. That's not what I want for you, because the best kept secret businesses are the ones that don't continue going. Okay. You need for them a clear offer, and you need a clear onboarding system. If this is something currently that you're struggling with, I want you to watch my other masterclass or do my business residency, where you have the opportunity to go through each stage of your client journey and make sure that your client through each stage of the customer journey is well looked after and is really well aware of what stage is coming next for them. Okay. And you need to convert the interest that you have into clients that actually pay you for what you do. Here's what you don't need, because it's just as important to know what you do need as well as what you don't need. You don't need 5 different services at this point. You just need to refine that one service. You need to make it the best service that you can have it. You need it to be so good that there is nothing that you could do to change it. Even if the service was twice the price, that there would be nothing that you'd add to it. That's how much value it should be creating. Okay. That's a given. You don't need a complex app. And at this point, you don't need a team. This is where people go wrong. Okay. People start thinking, oh, I'm just going to get some staff. I'm going to outsource some things. No, this is not the phase that you're in right now. Some of the mistakes that people make in the growth phase is adding complexity too early. So one of the biggest mistakes that you can make in a growth season is trying to look like an expansion business where you add another class type because you're not busy. Or a common one that I see with personal trainers that I mentor is they decide that because they want to be a rent paying PT, they will try and get clients there, but they don't have enough clients. So they decide to also sign up to be an employee down the road at a different gym. But the problem is, when you're not at the place that you're trying to get clients, you're not visible. And on top of that, you've got your finger in 2 pies. Is that the one? You don't have your foot in 2 pies. You've got your finger in 2 pies. So it's very hard to be able to pull yourself away from having your finger in 2 pies once you get a little bit of establishment in either one. So it's better to start how you intend to continue. And it's easier said than done at times, but it is about learning the most that you can so that you don't end up with a worse dilemma where you've got plenty of clients at your employee gym and you don't have enough clients to pay rent at your rent paying gym, and you need the other one to support that one longer term. Okay. You also don't need to add online programs or complicated pricing tiers. And this is a really good time to say, I am really against people discounting their personal training services in order to get more clients. The problem is, when you start someone out as a discounted client, that is now the price that they assume that your service is. And the problem with that is not your client that is going to pay more. There's some occasional exceptions. I'm sure you're going to be in the comments. You're going to be saying to me, hey, I had this one client. It's always like one client. I had this one client that did a discounted rate and now they pay me full rate. Okay. There's some exceptions to the rule, but it tends to be the large majority of people. When you tell them that your personal training price is worth half the amount, then that is all that they'll be willing to pay in the long term. So they will value what you provide as half the price of what it actually is. So it's very hard to turn that around. So that is why, besides reducing for $1 here and there, I will not heavily discount these services. I know that there are other business coaches online that say make it a no-brainer offer where the person can't say no to it. I think there's only a few times where that works. One of them being where you have pretty much unlimited capacity, where you can fit 100 people in a class, and therefore adding a few extra slots that are at half the price is not going to be a big deal, and it's also going to bring the energy up. That's one of the few times that I would say discounting services works, but that's entirely itself a different model. It's a one-to-many model. It's not a one-on-one. As soon as you've discounted how much your time is worth in a one-on-one model, it's just really hard to bring it back again. And I don't want that for you. And it gets difficult sometimes. You've got to hold your boundaries. I did have someone that I said, if you buy a 10 pack, the casual rate goes down to this amount, and it drops by like $2 per session. And the person said, well, I will pay for 100 sessions up front. What's the deal that you can give me for that? And I said, well, nothing more than what you would for buying 10 at a time. And they still paid me for 100 sessions in one go. It's just they were testing what that boundary was. And so that's up to you to set that boundary. Before you've even filled your base capacity, if you're reducing it, it means that you're going to have the issue in the future that you're going to have to add more sessions in order to be able to make the same amount. And that is not a good place to be in. That's where, if you're looking to do outside reading, people like Alex Hormozi are useful. He does talk about grind and the hustle and that sort of thing. I would say that if you are doing the grind and the hustle mentality, do remember it's about working smarter, not harder. Moving on to the second type of season that we're talking about, and it's the stabilization season. How you know that you're in a stabilization season is that stabilization is that you need to get some consistency. So your demand is about equal to your capacity. And you might be mostly full some weeks, you might be dropping off other weeks. You might feel like you're just barely holding it together in terms of your income and being able to, really do this. This is where you've proven that your demand exists, but you need to make it stable. And that is where you need to look at the service that you provide, not just the skill set itself of delivering sessions or the gym that you have. It's about how you provide the service in terms of what are your boundaries around your cancellation policy? How are your text messages reading to the client? How timely are you getting in contact with people? Are you setting boundaries for when you reply back to them? So you're not replying back to them at 2:00 in the morning. This is where everything else needs to go under a microscope. Because, for instance, when income is dropping off in some weeks and you're mostly full, but it's not consistent across the weeks, things like cancellation policies can be the opportunity where you're going, let's look at how we're actually setting our cancellation policy and making sure that we're getting paid, because we could have fitted someone into that session. And through the enforcement of it, we're showing the client that we're holding them accountable, which is kind of the whole point of them doing the PT session. So everybody wins with that. Your priority in your stabilization season is your retention, your consistency, and basic systems. Okay. This is where you've got to change your focus, not to getting more people, but keeping the ones that you already have through that really good service that you're providing, not just in your session, the product itself, but how you deliver that product too. So your client experience, your rebooking systems, your basic structure that you have in the week. And it's not, at this point, complex systems. It's just things that stop the chaos. Some mistakes that you probably make in your stabilization season is doing more instead of tightening. So here is where people sometimes think, I need more clients or I need more offers, when actually you need better consistency. If you're doing wider reading, I would recommend that that's where you start looking at some of Jonathan Goodman's books. That comes in strongly at this point. But early stage businesses don't need complexity, they need reliability. And keeping clients long-term are really basic things, like I'm saying. You've got to think about how you deliver that service for the person, the wraparound effect of what you're actually providing. That's how we stabilize. And some of the retention things that we do are, is our product really good long-term? Does the client know what we actually provide? Such as if they aren't just doing a one-on-one PT session and then they suddenly, budgetary restrictions come into place for them. Do they know you also do group training so that they know where they can move along in your kind of funnel? Okay. That's important in your stabilization season. The next type of season that we have is a refinement season. This is about efficiency. Your full schedule doesn't mean that you've got an optimal business. And this is the phase that most people misread. You're busy, you're booked, but something just feels off. And usually in this, you're just tired, your margins aren't clear, your schedule is messy. It's not a growth problem at this point, it's an efficiency problem. And myself, I ended up in a problem here because I kept thinking I was in a growth phase and kept trying to get more clients, but yet I had 104 sessions a week. And that was when, refinements were coming in because I couldn't drink water whenever I wanted, because I couldn't go to the bathroom whenever I wanted, because I had clients back to back. But if you get the season wrong, it makes your life more difficult when you're trying to refine this, okay? You get tired, your margins aren't clear, your schedule is messy. The thing that I needed to tell myself back then, because I did that twice, is more clients is not better. Adding more clients at this stage makes things worse because you're already at or near capacity. And sometimes, like for me, I was finding that I was finding ways in order to be able to fit more clients in that were just not good, like working later or working earlier. We had a 24/7 gym that I was doing this out of. So instead of starting my sessions at 6, all of a sudden I started work at 4:45. Yes, it was just insane. So instead of earning more, you just end up working longer, you get more fatigued, and you deliver worse sessions. And this is where people burn out thinking that they need to scale when they just need to refine what they're doing. They just need to think about, what are some of the measures I need to take in this season? So in your refinement priorities, it could be that your pricing changes, your schedule structure, instead of starting earlier and finishing later. It could be that you don't work split shifts anymore, or you give the opportunity that only particular days you're working into the evening so that you have some time off for yourself and your family. In this refinement season, your priorities shift again. Are you working in a way that's sustainable? Are you actually keeping what you earn? These are important things to think about. It's where we stop asking, how do I get more? And we start asking, how do I make this work better? Okay, so that's part one. Next, in part two, we're going to cover expansion, misdiagnosis patterns, capacity model, reverse engineering income, scaling decision criteria, and our 6-month plan framework. As promised, expansion season. Expansion is where we look at leverage, where we look at what systems are working, what margins are stable, and demand exceeds capacity at this point. Expansion is where most people think that they are, but very few actually are. Expansion will only make sense when your systems are working without constant intervention and not just all in your head. Your margins are stable and you're actually turning people away, or you have a wait list. And if those aren't true, then you're kind of stretching, you're not expanding. In the expansion priorities, we want to be looking at hiring, partnerships, leverage. And then that's when we could look at bringing on staff, expanding services, and leveraging technology. Pause there for a second, because I want you to think about this part where we're saying bringing on staff, expanding services, and leveraging technology. You're only actually able to do those things if you had a hard stop at what you determined what your actual capacity should be. If, like the mistake I made, where you filled your entire day and actually expanded the day in order to fit in more people, when it comes to the idea of expansion, like maybe you want to add staff, maybe you want to leverage technology, the problem herein lies, all of those things that we've just listed, the staff, the services, the technology, we can't fit the extra time and effort it takes to implement those things if we've caked ourselves out with clients beyond what we actually should be doing. So all of these things take extra time and capacity to implement, which means you need the time and capacity to be able to implement them. And you're not going to be able to do that if you've completely booked out both of your days. And this happened to me. I was trying to bring in a booking system, but I didn't have the time in order to be bringing in the booking system because my days were so filled working 6 days a week with clients. And the seventh day was when I was creating the schedule for the week. And really, I wanted to bring in that automatic booking system, but it meant that I had to take a long weekend to nonstop input everybody's details into a booking system. Okay. That's the problem you come into when you're working in the wrong phase for what you're actually in. When we are looking at bringing on staff, expanding services, leveraging technology, that's ways that we can scale. That's where we're multiplying our output without multiplying our hours. Said another way, for each hour of time, if we've got clients booking instead of us booking, we are achieving more because the client is taking on the capacity of booking and changing their session, and the technology is handling it. That's how we're creating scale. Another way we can create scale is staff members. But again, if you have completely filled out your books, you will not have time in order to look for staff, never mind train the staff or hire the staff. So that's why it's really important to make sure that we're actually looking to the correct phase. When we are looking at which phase we're in, we need to be looking at, can we actually fit in hiring staff, looking for staff, training staff? If you're looking for some outside sources, some ideas from Two Brand Business can align quite well. They've got some really cool free resources online. And myself, I've got my business residency that you can do, and each week we set various priorities that we want to work on. This, in the expansion priority, is where we move from doing everything ourselves to building something that works beyond us. The biggest mistake here that we make in expansion is skipping steps. And this is where we're hiring before we have consistent demand, hiring before we have clear systems, and hiring before we understand our margins. Because typically, as a rule of thumb, fitness businesses operate with very thin margins. What that means is margin is your profit. So revenue minus the cost of operating, that difference is your profit. And when we start adding staff, that now eats a little bit more of our profit. If we don't have enough profit in the first place, you'll be finding that you need to get another job in order to facilitate paying for your staff. That's why it's important to understand our margins. As a rule of thumb across a business, the amount that we're paying for our overheads, like our electricity or our rent, and any of our fixed rate costs should be about 33% of the amount that we bring in of our revenue. And then staffing costs should be no more than 33%. So adding those together, that creates about 66%. And the further 33% should be your profit. And that's what you take for, first of all, the risk that you have in your business for a rainy day, for that risk that's being created, or for like another COVID lockdown. Let's hope that never happens. And or for actually paying yourself as well. If you do not have enough margin, so remember those fixed costs, only 33%. If you do not have enough margin where you've got that 66% left that you can have with your staff as a broad rule of thumb, it will mean that you shouldn't actually be hiring staff. It also means your prices aren't correct in order to facilitate actually being able to pay for staff. And that is something that you're going to need to look at. You also need clear systems for staff because everything is not intuitive in your business. And I will give you my favorite example of that. My favorite example is, are you ready for it? When you see signs everywhere, okay? When you go into various gyms, you'll see that beside a hairdryer, it says this hairdryer is for hair on your head. And you think, oh, Lordy, what is that telling me that people tried to use it for? A sign like that is telling you that when the hair dryer was put in, people thought the system was pretty obvious that you only use it for hair on your head. But then people were interpreting it without direction as being drying anywhere else. Okay. That's an example of how systems become interpretable by the person that's looking at them when they're not clear. Another one of my favorite signs, incidentally, is when I go into the warehouse in Alexandra, and it actually says on the sign that you're not allowed to bring your pet bird or bat with you shopping. And I just think to myself, that's one of those unwritten systems and rules that there is that you just never question. But I wonder how many people have been coming shopping with their pet bird or bat before they were like, you know what? It's not obvious that you're not supposed to do that. So let's make a sign. That's what a sign symptom a system is for your business. It's where something is not just up here in your head, it's something that staff can follow so that they are doing it in the way you intended in the first place. If you do not have these things that we've just listed before you hire, you're going to create payroll pressure, and now your business owns you. And I cannot tell you how many people reach out where they have an issue because they've signed up for a very expensive lease. They've got all of these staff. The operating cost of the business is very expensive, but the business is not bringing in enough money in order to pay all of those overheads. So the person, number one, is not actually paying themselves. So they're working for free, but also they're ending up in the negative. So they have to get a job on top of that job in order to be able to pay for this. So this is really important to get our head around and have proper planning around. Overall, for all of these seasons that we've discussed, the real problem is that most people think that they're ready to expand, but they actually need refinement. They think they need more clients when they actually need retention. They think they need systems, but they actually need demand. So then they pull the wrong lever. And the wrong lever with the wrong force means that the business feels harder than it should because that's not actually the thing that they needed to pull. Some misdiagnosis patterns that people have is they think that they're in a growth phase and they do premature expansion. They're in a refinement phase and they think they're in a fake growth phase. They're in a stabilization phase, but they think they need to do more complicated things. Or they're in expansion phase and they are actually the bottleneck because all of the systems are in their head. So let's quickly run through the following and see if any of these hit for you, right? Are you in a growth phase, but you're trying to hire? That's bad. Are we adding more clients instead of raising prices in a refinement stage? Are we one of those people that's buying technology instead of fixing the basics for stabilization? And in the expansion phase, are we just refusing to delegate? Which is not pretty when you have to try and put in technology, but you actually don't have the time to do it. Or you need to hire staff, but you just don't have the time to train them. These are all predictable patterns that I see across business all the time when I'm working with mentoring businesses and mentoring personal trainers that run business. Once you see them, you stop repeating them. Let's get on to our capacity model. So our capacity equals time, energy, and quality. This is one of the most important shifts that we need to look at. Capacity is not just the hours that you work. You don't have 40 hours of coaching capacity just because you can physically stand there. Capacity is your time, your energy, and your ability to deliver quality at that level. And if one of those drops, then your real capacity drops. So take a little moment and let's write down what you actually want to make in a year. Okay. Let's do this math. So write down what you want to make in a year. You've got that already? Now, when you write that down, we're going to divide that number by 48 because we're going to give you 4 weeks holiday. And then that'll give you how much you need to make per week. Keep that number there. I want you to write in another part of your page, write down how many hours a week that you can work Is that 20 hours? Be realistic. Are you going to wake up at 6 and finish at 2? Are you going to do that 5 days a week, for example? If blue sky approach, if you were getting to choose it. And now take that number and you've got to divide your weekly amount by that number. And that's going to give you how much you need to charge per hour. So if you're delivering 45-minute sessions, of course, you're going to need to get 3/4 of that price so that you can understand how much it is that you're going to need to charge. But this is a broad general way of how you're going to be able to calculate how much that you need to charge. Now, that's not how much that you're going to need to charge the client, because you need to take into account what your rent is, your fixed costs, how much the technology is that people need to book in, and any other subscriptions like professional registrations that you have. So let's write down those fixed costs in the margin beside that. So that could be your Register of Exercise Professional membership. It could be your rent that you pay on a weekly basis. Write down each of those and write down whether it's weekly, annually, or 2-weekly or monthly, okay? And this is where you need to calculate the cost per year for that. Got that? And now let's do the same thing again. You've got your yearly cost for that. Now you're going to add that on top of what you actually want to make each year. And remember, it's got to be with tax and GST, if that applies to you, goods and services tax. Add those two together, and now you're going to divide it by the number of hours that you work for your weekly cost. And now you've got a real number to work towards. Okay, so coming on from that, now that we've done that little exercise, and it's just a quick thing to do, it may be that by planting this seed later on, you're going to go, hey, actually, it's costs that I need to include, or GST has gone up or tax has gone up, for example. And if that's the case, then you need to come back to that calculation, but it's just to give you a quick indication right now. Let's move on to thinking about, when it comes to capacity, our split shift reality. So busy does not mean that you're being efficient. For example, split shifts, early morning and then a gap and then the evening. On paper, you're full, and in reality, you'll feel fragmented. You'll feel very tired doing this on a long body of time. You'll have low energy, long days, poor recovery, and it's a scheduling problem. I will also say too, it creates a social or a familiar problem, because it means that there isn't that opportunity for catching up with friends, catching up with family, because you're literally working at all of the times that's before and after their work time. This is very important to take into consideration if you're someone who wants to stay in the industry the long time. And it's one of the number one reasons that I see that people leave the industry, because they don't see a way in order to continue working without being the one that's working while everybody else is off. All right. So it's worth keeping in mind that split shifts are going to be something that contribute to that. And you don't actually need to leave the industry to get rid of split shifts. Simply, it's about looking at how can we make it so that it's our ideal schedule. It's our ideal working capacity, the number of hours that we want to work. It's very simple to think about, because say you want to be working from that 6 a.m. till 2 p.m. We just need to be finding the clients that potentially want to be working out at that mid-morning mark, or if it's a gym that's only open at those times, finding the people that want to work out at that specific time. And easily off the top of my head, I'm thinking seniors and retired people specifically can definitely come at times that you would usually call the more quiet times of your gym. And I've got an entire course on how to train seniors if this is an area that you're thinking of developing, okay? So we don't need to burn down our entire career just because we've put ourselves in a corner by choosing split shifts. No, we've got solutions and we've got ways that we can work around that. In our capacity decisions, more sessions is not the same as more capacity. By adding more sessions, it often just compresses your energy. So instead of better output, better client experience, and better retention, we actually get the opposite, because we've added more sessions on at the start or end of our day, just making us tighter. That's why refinement becomes more valuable than growth at these times. And maybe that's a pricing dilemma where you go, I need to increase my prices. I need to schedule structure into my day and draw the line in the sand and say, I'm not taking people after a particular time, for example. So that number that we created before, and you've got that written down of how much you want to earn per year, and now we've added on all of our fixed costs. Think about the lifestyle that you want to create for yourself, because most people will do the how many sessions can I fit in per week and then just add more sessions until they feel like they're getting somewhat enough money coming in. But instead, let's think about, what do you actually want your life to look like? How do you want to set up the income that you're getting from your clients? How, in terms of payment terms, even, do you want them to be coming in on a weekly basis so that you don't have to second guess when your money's coming in? Then we build the business around that. Just like we've done, our income goal plus our overheads is our required revenue. So we have to think about what we want to earn. We add our rent, our software, our insurance, and any staff costs. And that gives you a real revenue target, not vibes or guesswork. It's an actual number. So have a look at revisiting what you've written down there and think about, is this enough for the lifestyle that I want to create? Is it enough for me to not just survive week to week, but thrive? And is it amount that I would want to keep me in the industry? Or would I have to, based on this amount that I've just chosen for myself, would I have to leave the industry to make the amount that I actually desire for the goals that I want for my life? And if you haven't met the amount that you need to create the lifestyle that you want, and you're thinking, well, I'll have to leave the industry, the fitness industry, in order to get the amount that I actually need, that's where you need to reassess what your income goal actually is. Because occasionally we limit what we think our income goal is by what we think it should or could be based on what we've been able to achieve up until now. But remember, it's not about hustling harder, it's about working smarter, not harder. And we can do that with the correct advice, feedback, education. We can do that in the right environment, okay? Oftentimes, if we're looking at the number that we created for how much that we have to charge per session, and we aren't meeting that reality with how much we do actually charge, potentially our pricing is too low and our model doesn't support our lifestyle. And this is where people think, I don't have a client problem, actually, I've got a pricing problem. And there are ways, of course, if that number that you've pulled is just not a realistic number that the market will pay, there are ways, of course, through specialization, branding, positioning, marketing, or even through scaling, that you can effectively reach towards that number that is your goal to reach for your lifestyle. And remember, a part of this also comes into our client mix. Not all of our clients have the same energy cost to us. 30 low paying, high energy clients is definitely not the same as 15 high valued, well aligned clients. It might be the same revenue on paper, but it can be a completely different experience in reality. And this is where, in the refinement phase, where we're able to start shaping that. One of the ways we can do that is, after we've had our cup filled with a certain amount of clients to cover costs, this is where you can start potentially charging slightly more as you become more full, because the demand is increasing. That's a way you can kind of leverage into that. I am flagging this because I think as fitness professionals, we don't think about how much exercise is actually worth to others, because we set our own prices that fitness potentially isn't worth that much because we know it so well, when in reality, if we've done all of the education, we've supported all our costs a long time with our experience, it's worth actually quite a lot of money. So remember, you shouldn't be looking at how much you're charging based on what you would pay for exercise, but instead what that is actually worth to people out there. Okay. In making decisions for when we should scale, only think about scaling when you're 80 to 90% full. You've got your margins stable, you're actually turning clients away, and this becomes your filter. If you're not consistently full, if you're not financially stable and hitting capacity limits, you don't need to scale, you need to fix what's already there. So let's create our 6-month plan. I think that'll be really fun. In our 6-month plan, we want to identify the season that we're in and define the constraint that we need to work on. So that could be that we're just not charging enough. It could be that we want to not work split shifts, but we don't know how we'll fill that 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. mark, because we can get some people at lunchtime, but we've got some gaps there. And those gaps means that we don't quite have enough. That's where you can look at adding some education for learning how to teach seniors. It could be where we start looking at how can we create the best environment or marketing so that we're actually targeting those times as well. We want to think about 1 to 2 priorities that we can target in the next 6 months. And we've got to think about what we want to start and what we want to stop, because everything that we are saying yes to means that we're saying no to other opportunities. So what you stop is just as important as what you start. And this is about tracking as well. What's really fun is by doing what we've just discussed today, every 3 to 6 months, we can make sure that we're really on track to have the longevity in this industry that we deserve. We can make the choices and have the freedom that we deserve as business owners. And also we can make sure that we're providing the best experience to our clients so that they can get their results that they pay the good money for as well. And it's more fun when everybody gets the results. So in conclusion, we want to be looking at, are we working on the right strategy? Are we in the right season where there's less friction? And remember, we don't need to do more in order to achieve that. We need to do the right things for where we are. There's a lot of businesses that aren't broken, they're just misaligned. Fix the alignment and the rest becomes much simpler. So I want to say thank you so much for listening today. Let's connect if you'd like to on LinkedIn, and I will catch you in the next one.